Okay, my name is Konstantin Kladko. I'm the CTO of Scale Labs, Scale Network. So first of all, I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about myself. I'm pretty much like a typical nerd. So I did my PhD in physics in Germany at Max Planck Institute. I moved to Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, did physics there, moved to Stanford University, Department of Physics, also did some physics research. And at some point, I moved to startups. I think as many people move from academia to startups. And I took a course from Professor Bonnet, who was a crypto professor at Stanford, really liked the course, and then ended up actually joining a startup that Professor Bonnet started. And the startup ended up raising like $50 million, and we were building a crypto processor, a hardware crypto processor. We ended up selling the startup exactly for like $50 million. So we didn't make any money, but it was really a great start of crypto career. And then I founded a crypto lab, which was affiliated with National Institute of Standards and Technology in Maryland, in the States. We were doing all kinds of crypto evaluations for the US government. So I worked at this lab for several years. Then I founded a Wi-Fi security startup. For this startup, I actually got back to Ukraine. We hired an engineering team in Ukraine, and then ended up selling the startup to a company in London. And then after that startup, we got funding for an AI/machine learning startup, which was supposed to simplify AI and machine learning. And we ended up building the prototype and like piloting the product, but it was really hard to compete with Google and AWS of this world. So the startup was like dying pretty much. And so we like got back to investors and said, you know, we'll like just kill this startup, maybe acqui-hire. But at the same time, it was 2017. So one of our investors from Rick Thompson from Signia Ventures is like, well, you guys have to go. This thing is Ethereum. And I had no clue what it was. You know, I knew about Bitcoin, but I didn't really like it so much. But when I found out about Ethereum, I was like, wow, it's interesting. You can program this thing. So I literally jumped on the airplane and flew to DEFCON 3. And the moment I like entered DEFCON 3 in Cancun, it was like flower power, like summer of love. Everyone was like dancing, and Vitalik was dancing on the stage with unicorn and stuff. And I realized that even the VCs don't give me money for this, I have to join this thing because there's no Google and there's no Microsoft. It's really like wild field. So got back to San Francisco, and then I actually got together with my co-founder Jack. He had a successful healthcare software startup, and he was also working on digital currencies. So we raised money from VCs, and the initial idea was to do like take our big data thing and speed up Ethereum. The first idea was a fast decentralized exchange, but then we thought, okay, maybe instead of doing the exchange, we do the infrastructure that actually will be able to support this exchange. And so then that's how we got to this idea of scale, pretty much a parallel network which speeds up Ethereum. But then as we evolved, actually, we realized that transactions weren't really the thing for 2020, that people don't really want to pay for coffee now using Bitcoin or Ethereum. Maybe they will in 2023. But for a startup, it's really important to find the timing. So then we kind of kept on thinking and realized that the thing is a decentralized cloud. And we ended up building a community. So we're trying to take this small fish and put together all of the small fish to create this community and a kind of a big fish. And this big fish, we want to compete with AWS, essentially creating a decentralized cloud. So essentially what we want to do is to take every server on AWS and turn it into a blockchain. And it's very simple. And that this blockchain is going to be ETH compatible. You'll be able to use all of your ETH tools for this. So essentially anything you can run now on AWS, you will be able to run on this network on scale. But for this one, we do need to kind of tweak EVM a little bit, tweak Solidity a little bit. So we're making some small extensions, still compatible, but we're extending it a little bit. So people can take a website, move it to Ethereum, can take a mobile app, move it to Ethereum. And we're really practical. We really want you guys, like in the year of 2020, to be able to do these things. And then let me just give you a really fast poll. So what do you think the mankind needs more? A decentralized Facebook? Who thinks the mankind needs a decentralized Facebook? Please raise your hand. Okay? Who thinks the mankind needs a decentralized Uber? Raise your hand. Wow, it's many people taking Uber. It's like, who thinks mankind needs a decentralized AWS? And last, the question, who thinks mankind needs a decentralized Google? Wow, Google is like, yeah. And I can tell you guys my own story. So for Google, it's interesting. Several years ago, I was in Silicon Valley, and just some random ways, I got to an entrepreneurship party, and there was the co-founder of Google, Serge Brin. And people were just like approaching him, like drinking with him and asking questions. And I got to him and asked this question. I said, do you believe that at any point in time, an open source search engine can actually compete with Google? And he said, no, an open source search engine doesn't have the resources. We have millions of computers, tram-pam-pam, open source doesn't have it. Guess what? Maybe, actually, that's what I'm thinking, that cryptocurrency provides to us this ability for open source to have actually some kind of a financial, business model, so we actually can have a decentralized Google. And actually, if you don't think about Google, I can tell you another story. We were running this Wi-Fi startup, and our startup was doing this freemium model. So we were doing this public Wi-Fi access points, totally free. Like you could have up to 20 access points put on our cloud and manage them for free. But there was no solution, anything like that. But Google was still putting us on the third page. And to get on the first page of Google, you had to pay $5 per click to get on the page. So we were a tiny startup, having a great solution, free solution. There was nothing like that except like Cisco, which was like super expensive. Cisco was on the first page, we were on the third, and to get to the first page, we had to pay $5 per click. So when we got as a startup into this situation, I realized that how much Google stifles innovation, how much this entire idea of Google, how much conflict it has, because they say they're the best search engine. In fact, actually they can't be the best because they want to charge money to put you on the first page. If they put you on the first page without charging money, they will lose money. So what you see, you have these decentralized entities. All of these companies were startups, Google, Facebook, Uber. When they started, they're very innovative. But at some moment, they develop a brand, and they start like extorting like their corporate and power, and that's the problem we have in the economy now. We have too much people like going for the power, and too few people going for innovation. So we have lawyers are great guys, but maybe we have like too many lawyers in this world, maybe too many cops, too many soldiers, and too few innovators, entrepreneurs, and scientists. And blockchain provides us a way potentially to change this thing, and maybe not a perfect thing. I'm not saying that we're going to change the world and revolutionize. I'm much more like an evolutionary guy. I just want things to become a little bit better. I'll be happy about that. So that's what we do at scale. We're trying to create a network where you'll be able to take Facebook this year, move it to Ethereum. Take AWS, move it to Ethereum. And we're very practical and trying to find the simplest solutions. In many cases also find compromises. There's nothing perfect. So actually that's what I asked on Twitter. On Twitter also people talked about Google. People don't like Google, I think. So we're building a decentralized cloud. We want to pretty much, you'll be able to take every AWS server, transform it into a blockchain, kind of. Now, this is a big thing. We don't say that we're going to do it over 1 month, but it's like as with Tesla, when Tesla was started, there was Tesla Roadster, and then Tesla Model S, and then Tesla Model 3. So they did great marketing that they were actually able to keep people for many, many years with this idea. And we're trying to do the same. We're not saying that this entire transition to decentralized cloud is going to happen over 1 year. It's probably going to take 20 years, because what's going to happen is going to be a different generation. And as with Google, in 1998, it was clear that Google would become this huge company, but it took them 20 years to become this monster because they had to raise a generation of people that actually searched Google, the first thing. Very much with decentralization. I think it's going to take lots of time, but we need to start with something. So the network we are releasing this year is pretty much our Tesla Roadster. It's the minimum thing, and it's probably going to, for the most part, target DeFi, because DeFi is the most kind of sexy thing now. People actually doing loans to each other over internet. It's very exciting because the previous idea, if you think about hodling, it's not really the mainstream. Some people are fine, buy Bitcoin, wait 20 years, become a zillionaire. But that's not what most people want in this life. Most people want to have money, put money somewhere, and just earn a little bit more interest than they make in a bank. So this DeFi, the great thing about it, it crosses the chasm in a sense that now crypto is available just to people. So we're thinking about DeFi, like major thing this year. And then what we also see, social networks are kind of picking up. People are talking about decentralized social networks, decentralized Uber, drivers really don't like Uber. Uber takes 30% of their money. But if you're a driver, you have to pay for gas. You have to pay for repairs to your car. So this 30%, if you compare to how much money you take home, you can actually literally double your salary if there would be no 30%. So we are thinking organizations like that can actually really make economy more effective and also make Ubers and Googles maybe also more effective because they will at least have some competition. Okay, so that's our idea. It's kind of long-term vision. We want to create this community of small fish running this decentralized cloud. On this decentralized cloud, people will run these blockchains, all ETH compatible, all interacting with each other, and every blockchain will be essentially what a server is now, like a Facebook or Google or Uber, whatever. I'm just talking really fast, gonna go like about 5 things. We had to tweak the EVM, because we have to be able to run a website on EVM or like mobile app, right? So one thing, virtualization. We take like our guys, the guys who run our network, the validators, they buy things. We don't want actually them to buy AWS virtual machines. We much better want them to buy servers, like hardware servers. So but they pay for the server. Now we split the server in small pieces using Docker containers. Maybe some of you guys know Docker containers. And the idea is that you'll be able to buy a very cheap blockchain because the minimum containers have 1/128. So we'll be able to pay a very little amount of money and have your own decentralized blockchain that is executed by people for you, the community. So that's our architecture, pretty much split the server in many pieces. Every piece can be part of a separate blockchain. So we call it elastic blockchains. Now file storage. This is actually an interesting story. When Steve Jobs was already very ill and pretty much dying, the guys who founded Dropbox, he wanted to actually acquire, Apple wanted to acquire Dropbox. And the guys came to Steve Jobs, there was a meeting, and Steve Jobs offered these guys, Drew and the other guy who founded Dropbox, they offered them like X billion dollars. And the Dropbox guys were like, no, we're not going to take this X billion dollars, we want Y billion dollars, right? And Steve Jobs said, I'm not going to pay you this Y billion dollars because it's not a product. File storage is not a product, it's a feature. It's not something that needs to exist by itself. And that's actually what we also think. And this IPFS, but our take is that file storage has to be part of the blockchain. It's a feature and not a product. So extended EVM, you can store any files on it. You can store images, music, anything you want. And we've got like many hackathons now, people putting all kinds of stuff on Ethereum compatible blockchain, so they easily host the entire website, or using like images and music, whatever. So that's the storage part. Another thing is consensus. So we took pretty significant time to understand which consensus to use. And we started trying to categorize and understand which ones are secure, which not secure. So we developed a framework, like zoology, basically, where we can take a consensus and split it into 7 stages. And every consensus is split in 7 stages. Very much the same way if you have a car, you can say, okay, this car has brakes, this car has wheels, engine and things. And if you are able to split your car into smaller logical components, you're able to analyze the car better. So now we can take a consensus from someone else and say, okay, this guy's great, it works very fast, but doesn't have brakes. It can't really brake, so it's not really a secure car. So we have this thing, and so we have this high-level thing which is mathematically clean, and the rest of it, all of the pieces, all of the 7 pieces we have, we actually steal from academia. We didn't design any of it. We just looked through different academic research and found different algorithms algorithms that people in academia were actually perfecting, and we are implementing them and actually putting them together. Especially for consensus, we have a great algorithm which has been implemented at University of Nantes, actually here in France. And I think that's the best algorithm. You know, in my subjective kind of, it's 2015 and has lots of very good scaling properties, these mathematical algorithms. But anyway, so we have this consensus. Because it's a new thing, it has very modern things like there's no block time. The block can be really fast. If you run it in a corporate network, the block time could be less than 100 seconds, and there's no fixed block time. And also there's no timeouts in the consensus. You can have like a set of machines, you can unplug all the network cables, and then wait for a week, and you plug in the network cables again, and it starts working, because there's no timeout anywhere in the code. So our consensus is forkless, asynchronous, no fixed block time, proof of stake consensus, mathematically provable from the beginning to the end. And one of the things we're going to have this year is actually publish a paper and submit it to a refereed journal. So actually, there is an independent review of this algorithm. People say, okay, this is secure, or maybe a security hole somewhere, whatever. So we're actually working on that one. And because it's mathematically provable, we know that there's a solid foundation. If we have a bug and it crashes, we know that it's not like the foundation is bad, it's like somebody like put an incorrect code, and it actually makes life much easier, because if everything is mathematically provable, your bugs tend to become smaller with time and less important, while if you don't have the foundation, you're kind of trying to fix things on the fly, you can have a huge bug every day, a huge crash, and you don't really know how to fix this thing. Number two, paranoid compatibility with ETH mainnet. So you can, on our stuff, you can pretty much use all of the ETH tools you can been using, like Truffle, whatever, Open Zeppelin, anything you can use on the mainnet. It's fully compatible. And so these are the tools you guys probably know. And then we also provide a very simple way to transfer tokens, actually any messages. Tokens are just a type of message transfer. Any tokens like ERC20, 777, NFT, you can like transfer back and forth for these chains, like many chains. And then the token transfers, everything is done in Solidity. So we tweaked the EVM. But for developers, if you have two smart contracts on two different networks, the way they interact is just by sending messages to each other in Solidity. The only thing you need to do is Solidity for this. So that's how the messages are sent. And then last but not least is decentralization. This is kind of the hardest problem really currently for us, because we start the network, but the network, the community, is a complex community. You know, like Bitcoin is simple. People like use POW, they mine, and then they submit blocks and whatever. Our stuff is necessarily complex. We can't really make it less complex because there are many things like apps, you know, storage, anything. So because we have complexity, when we start the network, we have to be ready for this thing to get embarrassed and crashed and like blue screen of this. Our hope is that the community will help us, will create this, our validators will help us to actually perfect this. And this is going to be, I think, a huge undertaking for us, because we really want this small fish to actually go into this large fish. And all methods are fine. I don't think it's going to be just crypto economy, because many people are just slashing. Because, for instance, for slashing, not everyone likes it. You know, people get discouraged when the money is taken from them, and the community kind of gets strained. So I think for the most part, it's important to also create some kind of a psychological or social ways for this community to exist. And I don't really believe in like this community being anonymous. I believe in these things being more like cooperatives, like where guys get together and create a taxi company, and this taxi company works. So guys get together and create a decentralized cloud. So these are going to be decentralized cooperatives of humans. And one huge thing which is totally unknown for us now, how to organize these humans so they actually provide enough service to compete with AWS. Because if it doesn't work well, we can't really compete with AWS. If we push them too hard, they will start leaving. If people get upset that they get penalized too much. So we will have to find out how we create this community, and it's a super complex, interesting problem. We'll see how it goes. We don't really know how it's going to go. We hope it's going to go well, and I think the best is going to be just iterating and kind of changing things. So we have delegators. Our token is delegatable. So some of the people may not don't just delegate their token. They won't know how to run the things, but they will delegate a token to someone who runs the thing. Very much like if you have, I have a small taxi company, but to run every car, I have to have like whatever, $100,000, and somebody needs to delegate to me this $100,000 as a proof that I'm a good guy to run this taxi. So we have delegators and validators, and they have different things in the network, but as a delegator, you will be able to buy a very small amount of tokens and delegate to one of the validators. Now, we actually face this huge problem about scalability because some of the validators may literally get like hundreds of thousands of delegations delegated to them. That's really interesting thing. By the way, we have many, many interesting things on our website and blogs, and if you guys want to read more about our network, we have lots of interesting information. Okay. There's a timeline. So I guys told you pretty much we have the testnet now. We are working on releasing the mainnet. And then the first iteration of our network will still not have every single thing we need. There are two things which will still be missing. One thing is AI. If you have a social network, you need to be able to somehow analyze photos when people upload them. Otherwise, you know, if you want to have a decentralized Facebook, you should be able to somehow filter bad things on the way in. The community should be able to, and Facebook does it by using AI. So you'll be able to actually upload, in our second version, you'll be able to upload any TensorFlow model to Ethereum, and actually this TensorFlow model will be able to analyze the photo. But then, you know, guys, TensorFlow models can do anything. They can do lots of financial things. One of the really exciting financial things you could do with TensorFlow and neural networks is to do a stable coin where the fluctuations of the coin are smoothed out by a neural network, hopefully more advanced than just a regular mathematical formula. So that's really, there are lots of interesting financial applications of AI on blockchain and private computation. We do need to be able to give people reasonably private data, and we are implementing this using Intel SGX. Essentially, in the second iteration of our network, you will be able to have your private things that only you will know, and they will be protected by Intel SGX. For many, many commercial applications, it's going to be fine. Maybe if you like store a key to some government and say whatever thing, maybe SGX is not good enough. But if you store your banking, you know, where you paid for coffee or which restaurant you did go to, if you think it's reasonable. So that's it. I would like to thank our investors. And if you guys have any questions, I have time, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, we're kind of running like out of schedule, I guess. So
okay, great.
Outside would be
Thank you.
better. Sorry.
No worries.
Wait, is John here?